Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Junk Food and You. This is the podcast where sometimes I interview people and sometimes I just tell stories, and today is another story episode. So today I'm going to talk about places I've lived. We have another podcast called Junk Food on the Road. That's where Allison and I talk about the food and stuff that we've tasted on our travels. In several of those episodes, we've actually talked about the places where I've lived. But this is going to be more specifically just talking about sort of listing the places I've lived, just so you guys have an idea. And then also sort of talking about how it's influenced me and how it's sort of changed my my eating and my junk food and my snacking and my candy sort of experimentalness and things I've gotten to try and things I've sort of gotten used to. So it's sort of a broad look at that sort of thing. So as always, when we do an episode of Junk Food and You for the solo show, I have a treat. Today I'm having a giant thing of mango pudding. This is a very Asian thing. It's like a mango jelly thing. And I brought a plate and a little spoon with me because one of the things about pudding sometimes is I think you're supposed to flip them over and eat them. I'm not sure. So I've decided, just as a little bonus thing, I'm going to try doing that. Flipping it over, putting it on a plate, and seeing. So, I mean, this is almost turning into another type of video, like a Chris, why would you eat that video or something like that. But it's not. I mean, these things are pretty good. It's a jelly. It's almost like a jelly that has sort of a cloudy jelly, and there's little jelly cubes in it. And so I think you're supposed to flip it over, and it's supposed to make an attractive shape when you do that. So I've got this little plate here. I'm just going to flip this over real quick and see if it pops out. It's not popping out. I got a little spoon here. I'll try putting a bit of air in the top there, see if that helps. Oh, it did. That absolutely totally did it. There was a little suction problem. So what you're left with is a very slidey, sort of weird, sort of flower-shaped pudding. I don't know. I'm going to take a picture of this when I'm done so that you'll see sort of the shape roughly, because I'm not going to eat this whole thing because that seems like a lot. But I'll have a graphic up here somewhere of what this looks like with a bite taken out. Sorry, because I'm going to take a bite out of it, and I haven't taken a picture yet. So let's see this mango pudding. Let's try it out. I don't understand this. Is this pudding as in the British, sort of, they call pudding dessert? Or is this pudding like the North American where they call pudding like, that, because it is kind of pudding looking, but it's not. Oh, there's a chunk here. A few chunks. You kind of have to use your fingers. I took a really small spoon because I thought it'd be cute. Turns out it just made it really difficult, so. Oh, it's chunks of fruit. I thought it was jelly. I don't know what kind of fruit it is though, which is kind of weird. Maybe I'll take another bite of that later. We'll see. It's kind of weird. Not too bad though. It kind of tastes okay. Tastes like it might be mango related. So as always with these podcasts, I am also going to be doing some extra work on the side. I'm organizing some photos. Pretty easy thing to do. I can easily talk while I do that. So let's talk about where I've lived. To sort of say that right off the bat, I can give you the list. We'll just list off the places I've lived. I have lived I was born in Canada. Then Allison and I went to Japan for about 3 months, so I don't consider that living, but I'll probably get into that a little bit. Then we moved to Greece for 4 years. Then we moved to Pakistan for 2 years. Then we had a year back in Canada, and we lived in Cambodia now for 3 years. So that gives you an idea, just sort of geographically where I've lived up until now. So how's that affected my taste? I mean, Japan was, I knew when I was going to Japan for the 3 months, I knew this was going to be like a crazy sort of, place where I'm going to be eating all kinds of weird things, because I knew about Japanese snacks before I went to Japan for those 3 months, and, I had a list. I was ready to go with my list. And so you'll see on Candy Critic in particular, you're going to see a lot of Japanese candy reviews, because when I was there, I went crazy. I actually wrote my first book that I haven't, it hasn't been published yet, but it's sort of this sort of piece that I wrote, and I don't know if it'll ever get published. Hopefully it will at some point. Sort of a coffee table book about Japanese snacks. Because while I was there for the 3 months, I went around to the different areas, and sort of different areas of Japan have their own little sort of snack things. And so I went around tasting the different snacks. And one of the things that it sort of got me used to was the idea of like things that I would consider vegetables being desserts and being snacks and treats and sweets. So like sweet potato, pumpkin, things like that sort of became dessert things for me while I was in Japan. So that was probably one of the biggest sort of candy related changes. And I got used to jellies and pastes a little bit more, like red bean paste and stuff like that. So the next place I went to was Greece. The cool thing about Greece was I've always had this love of like European treats, like particularly chocolate bars and stuff like that out of the UK and everything. And we'll say instead of just saying Greece, we'll say Europe, because I really got my fill of European things. I mean, there was definitely some things about Greece, and if you listen to the episode of Junk Food on the Road, you'll hear me talk about, you know, definitely some of the things I loved about Greek sweets and Greek treats, like the Livoni ice cream, Eon chocolate bars. I got into like, you know, baklava and stuff like that for sure. But the one thing that it did is Europe has, as a continent, has its own sort of flavors and its regular treats. Things like Cadbury that's really good, and a few other brands, Fry's, some of the British stuff and some of the European stuff and some of the like Fazer from Finland. It's really available in Europe. It wasn't something I was exposed to in North America. And while I was in Greece, I actually was able to sort of sample it a lot and really got into it. And so I sort of developed this love for and this love and then this respect and this understanding of European treats. So I went nuts, and it was kind of cool because while we were in Greece, we traveled a lot through other parts of Europe, and I wouldn't be taken by the Europeanness. This is something this is sort of an overarching thing about living in places as opposed to traveling to places. When you live someplace, you sort of start to get used to the idea of certain types of treats. And then if it's like in Europe, like British Kit Kat bars, I could get a British Kit Kat bar anywhere in Greece I wanted to. I could get, you know, Fazer chocolate in a lot of places in Europe because I was living there. So when I would travel to a place like Poland, for example, I wouldn't be sort of taken by the stuff that I could get everywhere in Europe, and I could specifically look at the Polish type candies or the, you know, Lithuanian, or, you know, I recently went to Finland and it was the same thing where I could focus on the Fazer stuff and I wasn't sort of taken back by the sort of European general stuff. Milkas are available everywhere. I mean, they're obviously, you know, I think they're from Switzerland or Germany, probably Germany. And so because Milka is available everywhere in Europe, when you go to other places, you're not sort of taken by the Milka bars. You sort of get to specifically look at what's, you know, I got to see the Livoni and the Eon and stuff like that from Greece because I was not sort of obsessed with just European stuff. And as I traveled through Europe during that time, that happened more and more, and that was kind of a cool thing. So that's one of the overarching things about sort of living in places is you get used to the general type of culture that's there, and you get used to the food. So then you can sort of really look at like the regional stuff. Like even within Greece, I would look at like trigones in certain parts of Greece was a dessert. And so I had learned that. I could also learn that, you know, where the best baklava is and the different types of halva and stuff like that. So that's something that I really started to happen in Greece. And the next place we lived after that was Pakistan. Completely different culture. But again, you know, one of the things that it sort of got me to do is sort of in that area of the world, in this sort of South Asia area, India, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka and everything, it gave me the flavors, and it gave me the brands, and it gave me the types of treats to expect, and sort of taught me to learn about them so I could then dig a little deeper into the specific areas of this world, of that part of the world, and learn specifically about the flavors of different areas and the nuanced differences and everything. Like, I mean, a good example is the difference between Pakistani and Indian food. A lot of people might have trouble figuring what that is, but with this living in Pakistan, I really sort of learned the difference in the types of spicing that they use, and even the different regions of Pakistan or the different regions of India, how they spice things differently. I mean, these are big countries. Some of these countries are as big as Europe or bigger. So it's not surprising that there's different flavors and everything like that. So Pakistan definitely taught me that and allowed me to learn more about that sort of area of the world, as well as we used to go to Dubai a lot, so I learned a lot about sort of the cooking in that area and the treats in that area. Also, how they took a lot of Western stuff and changed it. In Europe, there was already a lot of Western stuff that I was comfortable with, but in areas like Pakistan and India and everything like that, I sort of learned how they would sometimes take Western flavors and change them, and sort of, or how Western flavors were influencing them. And then that's something I later actually relearned in Japan, is how the Western flavors sort of influenced that. So that was kind of neat too. And I mean, the other thing that in Pakistan that sort of changed about me is I developed my tolerance for heat. I before that, I anything hot, like hotter than an onion, and I was out. But in Pakistan, I had to develop a bit more of a heat tolerance, and so I'm not great, I'm not spectacular, I'm not eating the hottest sauces in the world or anything like that. But I can hold my own a little bit better than I could before that. So that definitely happened. So the next thing, I went back to Canada, which is actually kind of cool because I went back for a year. We weren't expecting to stay for a year. We thought we were going to be back in Canada for 3 years. And so I settled a little bit, but things were still newish to me again. I was sort of relearning about sort of Canadian, North American, and American, because we went to the States a couple of times, culture and foods. And so I was sort of getting back into that. I was just learning about the bazillion types of Oreos that were available, and the sort of foods and treats that had become the norm since I had been out of the country for 5 years and 3 months. So back again, I was able to sort of reconnect a little bit with my sort of Canadianness, and I was also able to appreciate the flavors of Canada again, sort of the things that I missed, the things that I loved, and the things that I took for granted when I lived in Canada for so many years before that. So then suddenly we ended up in Cambodia, which is where I'm recording this right now. In Cambodia, it's Southeast Asia, so we're talking things like noodles and all kinds of different flavors like that. And here, my idea of what is a daring food has changed. I used to sort of think that there'd be all these like crazy things. Oh, people eat bugs, this and that. And here, living here, I've kind of learned why people ate bugs, and sort of, right now there's political problems with people eating weird things, as a possible cause of the coronavirus. But one of the things I learned here is that there are some different foods that aren't sort of the weird, desperate things, but are actually like part of a culture and weird flavors. And a good example of something simple is like cereal for breakfast is not a thing in this part of the world. It's rice and chicken. And I always found that to be kind of, that's a common thing. And I always found that to be weird. Like, why would you eat rice and chicken like that? It just seems strange to me. It wasn't weird like I wasn't gonna, I thought people were bad for trying it, but it just didn't seem quite right. But then having lived here for a bit, I've had some opportunities to kind of try it and do it on a regular basis, and it's actually like a really good breakfast. Like, and then it sort of made me think, why aren't I eating like a small dinner for breakfast instead of doing like cereal and different things? Like, why are these meals different? And it sort of made me pause and think about this sort of thing. So I mean, that's definitely something. And I also, I mean, coming back here, I've reconnected a little bit with the Japanese stuff, and I'm a little bit more comfortable with it. Like, to me, it's like 10,000 different flavors of Pocky. It's neat, but I've had the opportunity to try a bunch of them, like and I've had a bunch of opportunities to try like a bazillion flavors of Kit Kat again, and sort of keep up and reconnect with that. And it's sort of, again, as I was saying with the Greece, and then it also happened in Pakistan. It's like I've sort of become comfortable and familiar with the Asian stuff, so I can start looking at the nuances of the different area, like what's the difference between Thailand and Cambodia and Japan and China, and what are the different flavors of treats and stuff. And I can also get into the treats that maybe aren't necessarily Western copies, so like the salted plums and dried stuff and different ways of having fruits, as well as giant slimy plums. That's this is it's different, but it's not. It's It's a texture I've become used to. One thing I'm going to miss, and this is how I'll sort of finish this thing. The one thing that the disadvantage you get when you've lived in a couple different places, and I'm thinking I might be going back to Canada sometime soon. I don't know for how long, and there might be other posts after that. Other places moving to, but you start to develop tastes for things like Greek yogurt is amazing. Like there's just something about the way they do the yogurt in Greece and the style and whenever I eat yogurt other places, it never quite holds up to the stuff that I had in Greece. And in Pakistan, they had mangoes that were like the most unbelievable mangoes I've ever had in my life, and and the naan bread and everything like that. And then here, there's these other fruits like red dragon fruits and the pineapples and the other fruits like that, and some cookies that are really good here. Amazingly enough, Cambodia has really good baking, cookies and stuff like that. So the weird thing about having lived in all these places is I'm now kind of ruined because there's no place that's going to have all the flavors and all the snacks and all the treats that I want, that I'm sort of become used to in some parts of my life. So now I think about that all the time, where it's like, okay, I love all this stuff, and I'm not going to be able to have Greek yogurt with the Pakistani mango mixed in, and maybe some a nice fried rice on the side. Like that's never going to be a breakfast that I'm going to be able to have, because I'm never going to be in all three of those places at once. And so yeah, that's an interesting part. And I think we're going to keep on traveling and seeing. The cool other thing about living in other places and the fun part about it is it's easier to travel to other places. So like here in Cambodia, it's easy to get to Thailand. When we were in Greece, a flight to London was fairly cheap. In Pakistan, I could go to Dubai. It was fairly easy. In Turkey, so it was like all these kind of cool, easy to travel places, and we took advantage of that as much as possible. As you'll see, if you go to the Junk Food on the Road, go to candycritic.org/junkfood. You'll see some links to go to Junk Food on the Road, and you'll see a huge list. You can also check out our Candy Critic map. I've actually posted all the places where we've recorded Junk Food on the Road. So, you'll see that we've been lucky enough to travel in a lot of these places, and obviously the basis of those are about the food. So we were able to eat a lot of really cool things. So hope I get to keep traveling, and I'm kind of looking forward to going back to Canada at some point soon. I'd like to spend maybe a year there even, or whatever. I'm always looking forward to going to the next place. So even if it is back home to Canada. So thanks for listening to another episode of Junk Food and You. As always, you can follow us on Twitter @CandyCritic, or you can go to candycritic.org and find links to all of our other social media, including Instagram, Tumblr, Facebook, all that kind of stuff. You can also go to patreon.com/candycritic, and there you'll find links or all kinds of cool stuff. You'll get bonus content. We're working on a bunch of projects now, which I'm going to have a video about pretty soon, hopefully. And you'll be able to you get some of the stuff for free from our projects. You'll be able to buy some of the stuff too, but if you join up, you'll get it for free. And you get extra content, Friday videos, all kinds of fun stuff like that. Also get these videos in advance, so that's kind of cool. So again, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye.